Hello and welcome to a rant review. This is a rant review, so I am not gonna say a lot of nice things in it. Just so you know, leave now or forever hold your peace. I have read Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. And oh boy, yeah. I am not gonna do the non-spoiler section that long because I don't recommend this book, so I'm not gonna try to sell it to you. On the back of this book, the synopsis makes it seem like this is a friends with benefit kind of storyline where the main characters, Tate and Miles, agree to a casual arrangement because it says that Miles doesn't want love and Tate doesn't have time for love. So I was really excited about this going in. I thought it was going to be a friends with benefit, no strings attached kind of storyline where they fall in love along the way. And I really like those kind of storylines. So I was really excited about it. But it is very clear that from the first time that Tate lays eyes on Miles, she basically falls in love with him. So the book isn't about a boy and a girl who agrees to have casual sex because none of them want to be in a relationship. It is about Tate falling in love with Miles and not wanting to lose him. So she agrees to a casual arrangement in order to keep him in her life. And that was not the kind of storyline that I signed up for or that I thought I was going to get. So the synopsis in itself is very misleading, which annoyed me from the start, obviously. And what follows basically is just their relationship and how Tate wants to be with Miles and Miles doesn't want to be with Tate. There are a few side characters, but they're not really relevant. They're not there that much. And their only function is really to bring the story along. And yeah, so that's all I'm going to say about the non-spoiler. I think I might have already spoiled it. I don't know. I'm sorry if I did. If you don't want any more spoilers, I suggest you leave now and I guess go read it. But like I said, I would not recommend it because I didn't like it at all. I'm going to explain why I didn't like it now and I'm going to head into a spoiler section. So there will be spoilers ahead. Okay, so this book is set in San Francisco. And in honor of that, I have chosen to have my tea in my San Francisco mug today. I have a thing where I collect mugs from all the places that I go to. And actually, fun fact, my family used to live in San Francisco when I was about 6 months old. So cheers to that. So the first thing that I noticed that I didn't like about this book was the writing. The writing is not good. From the first chapter, I felt like I was reading a fan fiction. It was just the way that it was written just made it feel like I was reading After by Anna Todd, which is notoriously the worst book I have ever read in my entire life. Given it's not as bad as After, but it sounded like it. And it was a lot telling and no showing. A lot like, I like this. You like that. He's like this. Instead of just showing us acting like that, she would tell us the characteristics of the characters instead of showing it to us. And then there was this one part that I just couldn't, honestly. It is chapter 15 and Miles invites Tate to go shopping for curtains and a rug. And so they're walking out of the building. And Miles asks, "You feel like walking?" And this is what it says, and I quote, "I tell him yes, despite the fact that it's cold out. I prefer walking, and we're near several stores that would work for what he's looking for." I don't know, it just sounds like so, I don't care. I don't care if you prefer walking. That's you don't have to explain. I don't know, it just annoyed me. And then right after that, one page after that, they walk past a homeless man. And this is what it says. "I've always been sympathetic to people who have nothing and nowhere to go. Corbin hates that I can never pass homeless people without giving them money or food. He says the majority of them are homeless because they have addictions and that when I give them money, it only feeds those addictions. Honestly, I don't care if that's the case. If someone is homeless because he has a need for something that is stronger than his need for a home, it doesn't deter me in the least. Maybe it's because I'm a nurse. And I don't believe addiction is a choice. Addiction is an illness, and it pains me to see people forced to live this way because they're unable to help themselves. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not reading it like that because I'm making fun of her thoughts or her opinions, because I 100% agree with her. It is just the way that it's written makes it seem like she's the only one in the world who thinks this. Like she's such a hero because she cares about homeless people and because she knows that addiction is a illness and not a choice. Like everyone knows that. Like, I don't know. It just bugged me. Like, why is this even in here? Like, wow, you are such a saint because you care about homeless people. I'm trying not to sound like a jerk. I hope that you can understand what I'm saying. Like, this wasn't relevant for the plot line. It wasn't, why was this in here? And the way that it's written makes it seem like she thinks so highly of herself because she gives food to homeless people, which is a really good thing. I'm not trying to belittle that, but I don't know. It just like, I just didn't like it. And then in the same fucking chapter, they're in the shop and Miles just goes right up and chooses what he wants and then orders it. And then Tate says, "I've never seen anyone shop this fast," I tell him. Disappointed? I quickly shake my head. If there's one thing I don't do well as a girl, it's shop. I'm actually relieved it only took him a minute. Like, can we please stop with the "I'm not like other girls" trope? Like, can we please? Can we not do that today? Like, please? Okay, wow, you don't like to shop. You're so cool. It feels like I'm just completely being a jerk, but like, I am so fucking tired of the "I'm not like other girl" trope, where it's like, oh yeah, other girls like to shop and it takes so long. And I'm relieved that we didn't do that because I don't want him to think that I am a girly girl, that I like to shop and I'm vain and I'm a bimbo. Like, I don't want him to think that. I don't know, it just bugged me a lot. And it's also, again, what I'm trying to say with all these examples is I think this, I don't like this, I like this. It's like, it's just cheap. It's like an easy way out to bring depth into the character. And it kind of doesn't work because, okay, good for you. Like, it's just like, it's irrelevant. It seems irrelevant when you're just saying it like that. Show me that you don't like shopping instead of like just telling me that. Hi guys, I'm just sat here editing and I just wanted to make a couple things clear. The first thing is that I was not actually mocking her caring about homeless people. That is a very important problem in our society, and I was not mocking her caring about homeless people because I do think that homeless people need more help, and I'm not trying to mock that. What I was trying to say is that it wasn't relevant to the plot line at all that she cared about homeless people. They didn't talk about it at all after this scene. It was not brought up again that it is a problem in society. It was not discussed at all, which is why I had a problem with it. Because the only reason they had this scene was to make sure that the reader knew that Tate was a good person. I didn't like that Collin Hoover used the huge problem of homelessness as a way to make her character more likable. That's what I was criticizing, not the fact that she cared about homeless people. The other thing I wanted to clarify what I meant by the writing and what I meant with all these 3 examples was that it wasn't really relevant for the plot. That Tate doesn't like to shop was never mentioned again. That Tate helps homeless people, like I said, was never mentioned again. And that Tate likes to walk was never mentioned again either. It wasn't relevant for her character or the plot line that she had those characteristics. It would have been one thing if the shopping came up again, or Tate liking to walk was a whole thing of her character that continued to come up during the book. Or the fact that she likes to help homeless people was a more in-depth plot line in the book. But none of that was ever mentioned again, which is why I didn't understand why they were even in there in the first place. trying to give depth to the character without actually follow through. And that's what I meant by that. So that's what I had a problem with first and foremost, the writing. Okay, so let's talk about the actual plot and the actual things that happen in the book. First of all, we have 2 instances where the characters fall in love at first sight. And maybe it's because I am a very cynical person and I don't believe in love at first sight, but I thought it was fucking stupid. I don't believe that you can feel so strong for someone that you don't even know their name of. But that is just my personal opinion. And that's why that kind of threw me off. Especially when Miles met Rachel in the flashbacks. Like, dude, you don't even fucking know her. How? I don't know. I'm kind of cynical when it comes to love, so maybe that's why. But that threw me off and I didn't like it at all. But that's just a personal opinion. Another thing that really bugged me was the fact that Tate didn't have any friends. She didn't make any friends in school or at work. She was constantly working and studying, but she never made one single friend. We didn't hear about any friends until like 3/4 into the book, where all of a sudden she has 2 study partners and they're in the same study group. And we've never heard about these people before. She doesn't really explain who they are, except for the fact that they're in the same study group. And those are the only people that we've ever heard of when it comes to uni. And it appears that she has not made any friends at work, which is kind of weird because she's like a nice girl and she's kind of out there and funny. So it really doesn't make any sense that she wouldn't make any friends. And the only reason that these 2 friends get introduced 3/4 into the book is only a plot device to make Miles jealous. Because all of a sudden there's this guy who's coming over to Tate's apartment, which has never happened before. And this is happening right when Miles and Tate are kind of on a, like, not talking to each other. And just conveniently, the other girl, so she had 2 friends, one guy and one girl, and the girl got, like, called in for work. So conveniently, it's only him there. And conveniently, Miles steps out of the elevator right when he goes inside Tate's apartment. And it's like, really? Like, really? Are you kidding me? And we never hear about him again. I don't even remember what his fucking name was. Because we never see him again. We never hear about him again. And he's only there as a way to bring the plot forward and make Miles jealous and make Tate realize that Miles actually kind of cares about her, but then he treats her like shit again. So, like, I don't know. And this is also a perfect example on another thing that I could not stand, which is the possessiveness and the controlling and overprotective behavior of, like, every single guy in this book. Like, Corbin, her brother, is so overprotective and so, like, treats her like a child. Treats her like a literal child. And Miles is possessive, doesn't like it when she's talking to other guys, even though he can't even claim her because he's not wanting to be with her. And he's super controlling, super possessive, and it's fucked up. And that's why I want to get into, like, the real stuff why I didn't like this book. And that was the fact that it romanticized a toxic relationship. Miles is manipulative, controlling, just straight up mean, and treats her like shit. And Tate just takes it. And, like, I know, like, firsthand that it can be hard to get out of a relationship where people are manipulative. I'm gonna try not to be too harsh on Tate because I know what it's like to be in that kind of situation and still keep going back. But what I have a problem with is the fact that Collin Hoover has this synopsis, right? Where this guy treats the girl like shit, but he's still supposed to be endgame. He's still supposed to end up with her. So Collin Hoover was sitting there like, what can possibly have happened in his life to excuse this kind of behavior? And what she comes up with is, oh yeah, when he was 18 years old, his 2 days old infant child drowned after, like, driving off a bridge. fucking drowned. That is what Collin Hoover came up with. This is like a kind of lighthearted love, casual sex story about this girl who likes this guy and this guy who's kind of a jerk. And Collin Hoover decides to put in like the most traumatic thing that can ever happen to a person into this book. And quite frankly, I am not sure that she's allowed to do that. This is just like a light contemporary book. You can't just put in such a traumatic event in there. Like, I don't feel like she deserves it. I don't feel like she has the right to do that, because that needs to be explored properly. That is something that has to be explored and handled much better than she did. And I also love that she couldn't come up with anything worse. Like, she had this character who was treating her other character like shit. So she had to come up with like this traumatic, horrible experience in order to excuse his behavior. And I mean, I guess it worked, because like, obviously I have no idea what that would feel like. I don't have children, but I can completely understand that you would not want to love after that. So it makes sense, I guess, but it just didn't feel like it fit into this book. I don't know. I just had a problem with it because it felt so extreme, and it felt like she kind of threw that traumatic event around like it wasn't a big deal, even though that is like one of the worst things that can ever happen to you, that your child dies. Like, can you even imagine? So yeah, I thought that was kind of cheap and kind of bad, and like, just like, I wasn't happy with that. So let's talk about Tate and Miles, I guess. I was really provoked by the fact that every time someone did something bad to Tate, she felt guilty. Like, that scene where Dylan touches her waist without her consent and like is really close to her, and then Miles and Corbin tells him to get the fuck out, and they start fighting. Tate is like, oh no, I feel bad. This is so embarrassing. They're making such a scene over this. This is because of me. It's like, he fucking touched you without your consent. That's sexual harassment. Like, why are you feeling guilty about your brother and your lover protecting you over a guy that literally violated you? And yeah, I know it's not that. He obviously didn't do something that bad, but that's still sexual harassment. If someone touches you without you wanting it to, in like with intentions of being intimate or whatever, that's sexual harassment. Like, that's not okay. That's not legal. And she was like, I feel so guilty and so embarrassed. And it's like, no, he should feel guilty. He should feel embarrassed. He's the one who's violating your body. And that also was one thing that I had a problem with when it came to Dylan, because the emphasis was so much on the fact that he had a wife. Like, the emphasis that he was an asshole was because he had a wife, that he was cheating. He was a cheater. And yeah, that's really bad as well. I don't believe in cheating at all. That's really bad as well, and horrible and so disrespectful to that woman. But I just hated the fact that the emphasis was on the fact that he was cheating, and not on the fact that he was a sexual harasser. Like, that is even worse. No matter if he has a wife or not, he sexually harassed you, and probably a lot of other women. And that is a huge problem. And I just hated that the focus was on the fact that he had a wife. Because yeah, that's really bad as well. But even if he did not have a wife, he would still sexually harass. So I just had a problem with Collin Hoover not acknowledging that it was in fact sexual harassment. She made it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal by the way she wrote Tate's reaction. And I had a problem with that, because you should say what it is, and it is sexual harassment. And then we come to the finale, which is the sex scenes. So we've got 2 sex scenes that I had a problem with. The first one is the one where Miles has sex with her, leaves her on the kitchen table, and slams his bedroom door and leaves her alone in the kitchen. that was fucked up. Like, that was fucked up. And I mean, they do acknowledge that in the book, that it was fucked up. But she still like feels guilty for him because she feels like he's hurting. And so she feels so bad for him that she's not really feeling bad for herself, which is kind of fucked up too. And I just want to talk about this scene because I think it sparks a bigger conversation about women in heterosexual relationships. As a heterosexual woman, I have firsthand experience on the fact that sometimes things happen and you're not really okay with it, but you don't really know how to say it because you feel embarrassed or you feel guilty or you feel like it's not that big of a deal. And I don't know. I don't really know what to say, but I think that that's something that we should talk about in society in general. How, as I said, I can only speak from my own experience and I'm a heterosexual woman, but how women are belittled in their sexuality and how hard it can be sometimes to speak about what we're not comfortable with and what wasn't okay. Because there's such a blurred line between like sexual assault and just not being comfortable with something. At least I think so. Because sometimes you can be like, I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but I feel like shit. And then like, is it worth bringing up? Is it worth taking that discussion and taking that fight? Because he can just say, what? You didn't say no. You didn't say you didn't want to. So yeah, I don't really know where I was going with this, but I just think that that's a discussion that needs to be had about how easy it is to belittle yourself and diminish yourself to make someone else more comfortable, even though they are the ones who made you uncomfortable in the first place. And I think that's what happened with Tate, that she was like, that was not okay, but I don't know how to say it, because she didn't really know what happened in the first place. And she felt like she might have done something, which I understand as well, that you just, when you don't understand what's going on in someone else's mind, you just put the blame on yourself, which is horrible, but it happens. And I just felt really bad for her in that moment. I did feel a bit frustrated that she did not like question him the first thing she did when she saw him again, that she didn't like open the door and was like, what the fuck, dude? I'm not going anywhere until you explain to me what the fuck happened. I would have liked to see that, but you know, not everyone reacts to those kind of things the same. I am very confrontational. Not everyone are, so that's fine. The other sex scene that I had a real problem with was the like goodbye sex scene, if you can call it that, which is when Miles has broken down, he's crying, and Tate feels so bad for him, and she's like, I don't have to know, please stop. She's so uncomfortable with the fact that he's hurting so much, and she just wants him to not hurt. So she agrees to have sex with him while he's crying. He's like gone down on the floor and she's followed him, and he starts touching her, like intimately touching her. And she says, and I quote, I let him use me to get rid of his pain. Christ. There is so many problems with that sentence. I don't even know where to start. Girls, sorry, I'm gonna speak just to the girls now. Don't ever let anyone use your body for anything else but to give you pleasure, okay? It is so emotionally manipulative. Like, he's not saying, let me relieve my pain by having sex with you. He's not saying that, but he's indicating it because he's broken down. They were fighting, then he starts crying, and then he wants sex. He's manipulating her so much and just getting what he wants out of her. And she's letting him. And like I said, I know what it's like to be in a relationship like this, so I can't really blame her because, you know, that can happen. But I still want to talk about why it's so fucking problematic. And then if that wasn't bad enough, he then says Rachel's name when he's having sex with Tate. And at that point, you should leave. You should leave him to his misery because, you know what, it's just not worth it. Like, I had a hard time reading this scene because I thought it was so horrible, and it made me so sad because I know this happens a lot. And I have not been through anything like this extreme, but I've been through similar things and allowed people to do things to me that I might not have wanted because I felt bad and I felt like I couldn't really say no. So I know what it's like to go through something like this. And I had a really hard time reading this scene because it just hurts me so much because I know a lot of girls go through this. And maybe boys as well. She starts crying. By the way, during this sex scene, she starts crying as well because she's so hurt by the fact that he said someone else's name and that she knows it's over and she knows he's using her and stuff like that. So she starts crying. So they're both fucking crying and having sex, which is so fucked up. You should only cry happy tears when you have sex. I don't know. I've never cried when I've had sex, but you know what I mean? Like, this is so fucked up. She says things like, quote, "I just want this to be over." And then she says, "Just finish." Which is such a horrible thing to say because she admits that she's not doing it for her. She admits that she's only doing this right now for him to feel release, which you shouldn't be doing. You should never have sex for anyone else. You should never have sex when you don't want to have sex. You should never have sex to make someone else feel comfortable. Like, that's, no. And that just made me really sad for her, that she allowed him to do that. And she was very aware that what she was doing and that she did it anyways. I just hated that scene. And I thought it was really, really sad. I feel like Collin Hoover should have addressed it better and made sure it was perfectly clear that that was not okay. Because it will be young girls who are reading this book, at least like 20-year-olds, which is still quite young, who are reading this book and they're going to read it because they end up together in the end. So they're going to be like, it's fine. He never apologizes for it after this. He comes back and he explains why he's been a jerk, but he doesn't apologize for that one moment or the other one. Maybe, yeah, he does apologize for the other one. But this one, he doesn't apologize for at all. And they get together and then they get married and then they have kids. So it's like happily ever after. But they never acknowledge the fact that what he did that one time was so fucked up. And that makes me sad because I wanted a confirmation in the book to make sure that everyone understood that that was not okay. But yeah, so there is obviously a lot of other things that happen in this book, but that was basically my main issues with it. I thought that the relationship was very toxic and that it was romanticized by the way that they got each other in the end and everything was all right now. It's not the worst I've ever read. Like I said, After by Anna Todd is completely insane and I don't understand how that can be, even exist. Because it's so horrible, but yeah, it wasn't the worst I've ever read, but I am just so tired of reading these kind of stories where the guy is like possessive and controlling and jealous and it's written like it's romantic. Like that's a trait that you want in a guy. You want him to be possessive, you want him to be jealous, you want him to be controlling. No, honey, no, you don't want that. I'm sorry for saying honey, that was so belittling. I'm so sorry. But no, you don't want that. That is not sexy. It's not romantic. It is scary and it is toxic. And you deserve so much better than someone who acts like they own you. And that is gonna wrap up this rant review. I'm sorry if this was a bit messy. I don't know. I was just kind of like throwing out my thoughts. I hadn't really written a manuscript or anything because I feel like I can express myself much better when I just talk the way I want to. But yeah, that was Ugly Love by Collin Hoover. I actually gave it 2 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. I am now considering if I want to give it a 1, but then again, I am also saving the ones for really, really, really shitty books, like After by Anna Todd. So yeah, I gave it 2 out of 5. Maybe I'd give it like 1.5 or something. But yeah, no, let me know what you thought. If you liked it, if you hated it, if you thought it was fine, what you didn't like and what you did like. And I will catch you next time. Cheers.